We specialize in 360 video, which is part of the larger VR ecosystem. And here's a little show reel about projects we've done in the past. So this is a little overview about what we are currently having in the ecosystem right now. VR is a very global term that we all define like what it is. And at the moment, when we look at it at market research out there, we'll see that about 60% of the US population understands VR, knows about its existence, and may or may not have already experienced it. It falls at the moment in three major subcategories. One is VR, or SIG-Stuff VR, which is basically when we put on a headset and can walk around in a virtual environment and interact with it. The second major part, was also referred as cinematic VR, or 360 as a short right now, is 360 videos that take basically us into a new environment and show us something, but we cannot necessarily interact with the scene. We cannot walk around in it yet. And the last major favor that really came to boom like a couple of weeks ago when Apple announced it and Google announced it is AR, which allows us to use our smartphones and then augment the reality around us. All of those flavors of VR will eventually merge into a mixed reality or MR environment, or will be called XR. We don't know exactly where this is going, but we will see a great merger of those elements. And as well, with every new technology that is around there, we will always hear, oh, it's dead. And that is absolutely so far from the truth. VR is a very nascent environment and a nascent industry, and we will see now more and more of the new creatives coming out and exploring VR for different purposes. And there is in almost, in my opinion, infinite amount of possibilities out there what we can do with VR. So to call it that is so far from the truth. And we see so many new applications every day of VR. We use VR as a storytelling device because my company is specializing in 360 video, and so we use it every day as to tell a new story. And you really use VR as a medium where we can transport the viewer into it. It is a passive medium at the moment, so we can just put the user into the environment and let the story unfold it. And as the speaker before me actually mentioned it, there is nothing new to be done is not necessarily a true statement in stories, because we as filmmakers and storytellers in VR can tell totally new stories that have never been told before, never been seen before. So it is actually an endless opportunity for creatives to really come up with new ways to tell stories and to tell new stories that we've never seen before. So in VR and 360, this gives us really the opportunity to really see new spaces. over the years, we also seen a nice explosion of technologies. As my introduction has said, I actually invented fully spherical video as we know it today. So I'm very proud of having kickstarted that part of the industry a little bit by coming up with a camera system that allows the camera person to really take the camera into places that allows the storyteller to tell the story where it is and not be limited by the technology, and really open it up and making it a fully spherical experience. Because in VR, I'm not sure exactly who have seen VR, we have always trouble, like there might be a blind spot, or there might be some gear that we have floating around, recorders, tripods, and such things. And we're really able to do at the moment is to do away with this and create a fully spherical immersion in this. Because in my opinion as a filmmaker, is every little glitch that is in a VR experience really takes the viewer out of the experience. I want to make sure that it is as perfect as possible. And over the last couple of years, we really saw a great explosion of new technologies. So while there is no perfect camera out there, there are many, many options for filmmakers to go out there and tell their stories. It's not really what camera you use, it is how you tell your story and how you produce it. So Concept VR is a production house here in New York City. We're very proud to have a great deal of very international customers. We are currently 12 people, and we specialize in and partner with a great deal of great brands around us. Notably, for example, if you've known about the New York Times series of VR, we are collaborating with them on a post-production level. So if you remember, for example, VR piece called Fight for Fallujah or Under a Cracked Sky, those were all done by us in-house as a post-production filmers and filmed actually by the New York Times crews. Another notable experience, for example, was about last year when the musical called Hamilton here in New York won basically every Tony Award again. And we were very happy to actually be able to film an experience for the crew of Hamilton. And we directed a piece that takes the viewer really on stage. I'm not sure if you know Hamilton a little bit, but it has a gigantic fan base here in New York City and worldwide, and the audience really loved it. So this was released a couple of days before the Tony Awards, was promoted on Facebook, and spiked to about 1.2 million views. Then it got reposted by Mark Zuckerberg because he liked the piece a lot, and it spiked to another 2 million views again. And it's very special because you can, this 90-second piece, it's an a cappella piece where you can really watch each performer on stage in a very individual basis. So while Hamilton was strictly basically a promotional piece, another application for 360 video is on a commercial base, where we use it as a extended documentary and promotional piece. OpenBlue is a fish farm, and they specialize in open sea farming. As we all know, the traditional fishing in open sea becomes unsustainable rather soonish. The fisheries are depleted, so farming fish is a very reliable way to get sustainable fish out there that is under controlled. Putting the farm out in the open ocean and not near the sea helps also the environment a little bit. So we created a video that takes the viewer basically from how the fish are raised from the very, very beginning on land as very tiny fish, and then actually brought out to sea to the sea stations where they actually grow for about 3 years to the full length. And then we took actually the viewer right into a sea station. So we're actually surrounded by fish. And in VR, when you are in a headset, this gives you a very unique view underwater, because I'm not sure who of you have been diving before. When you're diving, you have a very narrow tunnel vision based on the refraction. In VR, we're actually able to remove that tunnel vision. Due to the nature of the 360 video, it really unfolds you. And so you, for the first time in a VR set, you can be underwater and actually see the true view that you are used to as a human being. The story then unfolds because it is a sales tool. It is meant to sell the fish to restaurants and fish markets worldwide. And they obviously want to know the quality of the production of the fish, how it's handled, and that's a safe product. And then we thought we'd conclude actually the story about that a chef is actually talking about his experiences with the fish and how this fish particularly is different than other fish on the market. So it was very interesting to see him actually prepare, like in front of the camera, things. So the client was very happy about this. So VR is helping us here basically as a sales tool that we can use for this company. Another application for 360 video is travel, where I believe it's almost the largest application for it, where we're able to take the viewer really to places, either to entice them to visit that place, or to actually just explore it if they can't travel there. So this is our partnership with Condé Nast. Condé Nast is a publishing house, and one of their publications is the Condé Nast Traveler. So we went to Cayman Islands and actually did an expose about Cayman Islands. And Cayman Islands is famously known for its beaches and its waters and over 360 diving sites. So the 360 experience really takes you through some of those diving experiences and really takes you there and immerses you in this exciting environment that it is. Another client of ours is also on the commercial side, is the United Launch Alliance. It's between Lockheed Martin and Boeing. And they are a very successful and traditional launch platform for commercial and as well as military satellites. And they wanted to feature their launches actually in a 360 environment. Previously, every launch they have is filmed from various viewpoints along the launch pad and shows you the launch like in a very traditional way. And they've been very successful with those traditional videos. And they've seen on average, say, 10 to 100,000 views on YouTube, a little bit. Then we produced 2 launches for them. This one is in Vandenberg in California. And after we released that video for them, their viewership skyrocketed. This was the very first time a 360 video was created of an actual launch on the pad from multiple viewing angles at the same time and telling the story how it is to roll out a rocket, to launch a rocket and what's behind it, as well as showing you the intensity of what a rocket launch actually looks like from very close up. Sorry about that. Actual Space is a collaboration I did with Thomas Wallner from Canada. And it's a story about the Canadian Space Agency. So space is a little bit a recurring theme for me. I'm a space geek, flat out admire it. And the Canadian Space Agency in Canada has a balloon launch facility. Balloon launches are used for scientific platforms that are where a rocket launch is too expensive or not necessary. So we got the very interesting opportunity to have a test platform launched because they wanted to launch a telescope that's about $1.2 billion worth, and they had to test the parachute to make sure that the telescope can actually land safely. So because you don't want to really test the parachute on an actual $1.2 billion telescope, they said, okay, we just do a dummy platform, and you can do with the dummy platform whatever you want. So we actually converted it into a 360 camera. And it was very exciting because we were filming actually the production, how we put the camera together, how we transformed the gondola into a 360. Then we launched this whole, we filmed the launch from the ground as well as from the platform. And then we also filmed how we actually retrieved this. This was also another very interesting aspect for me to see basically how the balloon parts, that is the envelope, the upper part, as well as the payload and everything in between, which has a length of about 400 or 500 meters in total, is actually retrieved. So there are amazing helicopter pilots in Canada that actually do this work to lift us out of the Canadian woods. And we got very lucky on this one because we missed a swamp lake by about 300 meters in landing. So if it would have gone a little bit longer, this whole thing would have landed in the swamp and it would be very messy retrieval for us. So we got lucky. Those are some of the VR productions we've done so far. Our goal is to be a very high quality and a very storytelling-driven content provider. We're doing mostly commercial content at the moment. We're also working on some original content on our own, parallel to this. And we're also very interested on working actually with the Chinese market. And that's why I've traveled actually quite often to China. And I was also part of a VR cinema opening in Beijing earlier this year. So seeing that and how the Chinese market reacts to 360 video as well as VR is very exciting because we see it basically in every mall in China. And we're very excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your amazing speech. Now I have time for one question. Okay.
Very nice meeting you, Mr. Geerds. My question is, basically 2016 has been a very tough year for VR industry because a lot of VC just lost a bunch of money on it. And also, moreover, ARKit has launched and it brings augmented reality to mainstream market. And what do you think about it? What do you think about the impact that AR will provide to VR? And what do you think is the most difficult thing to make VR video and media more popular? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think VR as a medium will get better as soon as we get better headsets and better outcome. Because right now we're still dealing with the problem that we can just discoverability of content. And the amount of quality content that's out there, it's still way too low. And the following speaker from Little Star will definitely elaborate a little bit how we can help out with this problem.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us the speech. And we really appreciate your effort and time and commitment. Thank you.
谢谢。